Have you ever noticed how the real tests don't come through arguments, but through silence? No insults. No confrontation. Just unanswered messages. Delayed replies. Emotional pauses designed to pull you off balance. Most people don't recognize this as a power move, but that's exactly what it is. Silence is used to measure how desperate, reactive, or controllable you are. The moment you break that silence with emotion, you fail the test. People don't need to dominate you openly anymore. They just need access to your feelings. Anger, guilt, anxiety. Each reaction hands them leverage. The modern battlefield isn't physical. It's psychological. Whoever controls emotions controls outcomes. That's why the calm ones always rise. They don't explain. They don't chase. They don't react on schedule. Emotional restraint makes people uncomfortable because it removes predictability. When others can't read you, they can't manage you. Calmness creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates power. You don't need to threaten or defend yourself. Your silence speaks louder than arguments ever could. Most people believe power comes from being understood, validated, or accepted. But real power appears when you stop needing those things. When nothing outside you can shake your inner state, you become untouchable. Insults lose effect. Manipulation loses grip. Pressure loses direction. This doesn't mean you don't feel. It means your feelings no longer control your actions. You experience emotion internally without leaking it externally. That's when people sense something different about you, something they can't quite define, but instinctively respect. And here's the truth most never realize. The moment no one can influence your emotions, no one can influence your life. Stay with this, because once you see how this game is played, every interaction will look different. Control rarely looks like control. It often disguises itself as concern, loyalty, or emotional closeness. That's why so many people fall into manipulation without realizing it. Emotional influence begins quietly. Someone studies your reactions, your triggers, the things that soften you or destabilize you. They collect this information patiently, like data. Then one day they apply pressure. A disappointed tone. A guilt-loaded sentence. A carefully timed silence. Suddenly you're questioning yourself, apologizing for boundaries, or feeling responsible for emotions that aren't yours. That's not connection, it's conditioning. Manipulators don't demand authority. They convince you to surrender it willingly. Guilt is their favorite currency. Phrases like, "You've changed," or "I expected better from you," aren't observations. They're hooks, designed to pull you back into compliance. What they fear most isn't your anger. Anger is predictable. Calmness isn't. When you remain emotionally neutral, their tactics collapse. Silence forces them to reveal themselves. That's why they label you cold when they lose access to your reactions. Pay attention to how you feel after interactions. If you feel drained, heavy, or mentally tangled, that's not accidental. It's influence at work. Emotional manipulators feed on reaction. When you stop reacting, they become restless. They may escalate, playing victim, offering sudden vulnerability, promising change. But it's all bait. The moment you see the pattern, it loses power. Awareness breaks the cycle. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care strategically. You protect your emotional energy like a limited resource. Because once you withdraw emotional access, manipulators starve. Remember this, it's never just a conversation. It's always a test. And calm is the only correct answer. Most people believe strong emotions make them authentic. In reality, uncontrolled emotion makes them exposed. Every visible reaction becomes information others can use. When feelings dictate behavior, power quietly slips away. History has shown this repeatedly. Those who ruled effectively didn't act from impulse. They observed, calculated, and restrained themselves. Visible emotion invites prediction. Prediction invites control. The more openly you display what moves you, the easier you are to manage. Think about it. When you react instantly to disrespect, you reveal sensitivity. When you seek approval too openly, you reveal dependence. When you express attachment without restraint, you reveal leverage. None of this makes you weak as a person, but it makes you vulnerable in a strategic world. The strongest individuals aren't the loudest or most expressive. They're the least readable. They feel deeply but reveal selectively. They understand that reaction is a form of surrender. This doesn't mean becoming heartless. It means refusing to let emotion override judgment. Anger must be measured. Fear must be examined. Desire must be controlled. Otherwise, they turn you into something predictable. Discipline is the difference. You can feel anger without exploding. You can experience fear without freezing. You can care without clinging. That balance creates intimidation, not through force, but through composure. People watch for cracks. They wait for emotional spills. When they don't find any, they hesitate. Silence becomes pressure. Calm becomes dominance. Uncontrolled emotion doesn't just weaken you. It advertises where to strike. And the world is always watching. The question isn't whether you feel. It's whether your emotions serve you or expose you. Being emotionally dangerous doesn't mean being cruel or detached. It means your inner world is no longer accessible to manipulation. Your emotions exist, but under command. Nothing leaks unless you allow it to. Most people live with emotional chaos running freely inside them. That chaos shows up in body language, tone, and reactions. It makes them readable, predictable, easy to influence. Emotional danger begins when that chaos is contained. You can be hurt without advertising it. You can feel anger without broadcasting it. You can care without dependency. Because the moment someone sees what destabilizes you, they gain advantage. Unreadability is power. When your expressions don't match expectations, people hesitate. Hesitation disrupts manipulation. Mystery forces caution. You become someone others can't calculate. This also removes you from petty games. Provocations lose their pull. Validation loses its value. You no longer chase reactions because you understand the cost. Calmness becomes your shield. Silence becomes your presence. Emotionally dangerous people act deliberately. They don't react, they choose. They recognize traps before stepping into them. Every attempt to manipulate only exposes the other person's weakness. You aren't strong because you feel nothing. You're strong because nothing controls you. Pain no longer disarms you. Betrayal becomes information. Pressure becomes training. That's why emotionally disciplined individuals are respected, misunderstood, and rarely challenged. Their composure unsettles chaos. Their restraint commands space. True power isn't loud. It's controlled and quietly intimidating. Emotional control isn't suppression. It's transformation. It's converting instinct into intention. Chaos into clarity. Reaction into choice. Mastery begins with pause. Every delayed response steals power from provocation. The pause disrupts scripts. It creates uncertainty where others expected reaction. That uncertainty gives you time to assess instead of react. Next comes strategy. Ask yourself one question before acting. What response benefits me most right now? That single shift removes emotion from the driver's seat and places awareness in control. You must also train your triggers. Everyone has them. Identify yours without judgment. Awareness neutralizes weakness. What you understand can't destabilize you. Control also lives in the body. Facial expressions, posture, tone. They all leak emotion. Mastering them limits how much others can read. When nothing is readable, nothing is exploitable. And finally, say less. Words create exposure. Silence creates gravity. The less you explain, the less ammunition you offer. Precision beats volume every time. This isn't a one-time achievement. It's a daily discipline. People will test you constantly. Each test is an opportunity to reinforce control. When calm becomes your default, others feel it even if they don't understand it. They hesitate. They adjust. They lose confidence in their influence. Mastery isn't loud. It's visible only to those who try and fail to move you. Most people think boundaries are built by explaining themselves. That's a mistake. Explanation invites negotiation, and negotiation invites control. The moment you feel the urge to justify your decisions, You've already stepped onto someone else's field. Emotionally disciplined people don't announce boundaries. They enforce them through behavior. Silence after disrespect. Distance after manipulation. Calm withdrawal instead of confrontation. These actions speak louder than arguments ever could. When people realize their tactics no longer move you, they grow uneasy. This is where power quietly shifts. You stop proving. You stop defending. You stop reacting on cue. And suddenly, the same people who tested you begin adjusting their behavior around you. Not because you demanded respect, but because your composure required it. Boundaries don't need explanation because explanations leak emotion. They reveal what matters to you, what hurts you, what you fear losing. When those details stay hidden, leverage disappears. Your life becomes harder to interfere with. This doesn't make you distant. It makes you precise. You decide who gets access and who stays outside. Emotional access becomes a privilege, not a default. And privileges can be revoked without drama. Watch what happens when you stop responding immediately. Watch how people fill the silence with their own insecurity. Silence doesn't weaken your position, it exposes theirs. If you've ever wondered why some people seem impossible to pressure, this is why. They don't argue their boundaries. They live them. And once people realize they can't cross your line without consequence, they stop trying. One of the most dangerous illusions is believing emotional intelligence means emotional exposure. In reality, emotional exposure without control is an invitation. The world doesn't reward openness. It exploits it. Every reaction you give teaches people how to treat you. If irritation earns attention, irritation will be used. If guilt earns compliance, guilt will be applied. Humans repeat what works. Emotional discipline interrupts this pattern. The emotionally controlled individual breaks expectations. They don't reward provocation. They don't respond to bait. They don't chase closure. This unpredictability makes manipulation inefficient, and manipulators hate inefficiency. When someone can't get a reaction, they lose interest or escalate. Escalation reveals intent. And once intent is visible, power shifts permanently. You begin to notice patterns others miss. Who creates chaos? Who thrives on reaction? Who becomes uncomfortable around your calm? This awareness turns social interaction into information instead of emotion. Power isn't about winning arguments. It's about remaining unmoved. When you stop reacting, people project their own tension onto the silence. They assume meanings. They second-guess themselves. You say nothing and they unravel. That's the paradox. Silence feels passive, but it's deeply active. It forces others to reveal more than they planned. You learn without exposing anything in return. If you master this, conversations stop controlling you. Situations stop overwhelming you. You move from participant to observer. And observers always have the advantage. Most people lose power not through major mistakes but through small emotional leaks. A defensive tone, a rushed explanation, a visible frustration. Each one seems harmless. Together, they build a profile others can exploit. Control begins when you audit your reactions. Not to judge them, but to understand them. What triggers urgency? What provokes defensiveness? What creates emotional noise? Once identified, these triggers lose authority. Discipline isn't suppression. It's delay. Delay creates choice. Choice creates control. Think of composure as a filter. Not everything deserves entry into your inner world. Not every opinion earns space. Not every comment requires response. Selectivity is strength. The less emotionally accessible you are, the more deliberate your connections become. You stop bonding through chaos and start connecting through respect. This shift repels manipulators and attracts grounded individuals. People may accuse you of changing. That's expected. When you stop being reactive, the dynamic breaks. The version of you they benefited from disappears, and they feel the loss. Don't explain the change. Live it. Explanation feeds resistance. Consistency dissolves it. Over time, your calm becomes familiar. People adjust or exit. Either outcome benefits you. Remember, the goal isn't to control others. It's to remove their ability to control you. When that happens, interactions become lighter, clearer, and less draining. And once emotional noise fades, clarity takes its place. There's a reason calm individuals intimidate without trying. They don't rush. They don't chase. They don't compete for attention. Their presence alone slows the room. This calm isn't accidental. It's trained. It comes from knowing that urgency is rarely necessary. Urgency is emotional. Calm is strategic. When you slow your responses, you gain perspective. When you gain perspective, you stop misinterpreting situations emotionally. Most conflicts dissolve when urgency disappears. People often confuse calm with weakness. Until they test it, then they realize calm isn't passive, it's immovable. Pressure doesn't bend it. Provocation doesn't penetrate it. You don't need to announce strength. Stillness communicates it. Silence carries weight because it removes feedback. Without feedback, others lose control of the interaction. That's why calm makes people uncomfortable. They can't read you. They can't predict you. They don't know how to adjust. The less reactive you are, the more others reveal themselves. Their impatience, their insecurity, their need for control. You gain insight while giving nothing away. Eventually, people learn something important about you. Emotional games don't work here. And when games stop working, they stop being played. This isn't isolation. It's sovereignty. You engage when you choose, not when you're pulled. And once you experience this level of control, you'll never rush a reaction again. True emotional power is quiet consistency. Not one strong response, but many restrained ones. Not a single moment of discipline, but a lifestyle of it. People test limits repeatedly. They wait for cracks. Emotional mastery means those cracks never appear. You become reliable in one thing only: unreadability. This consistency builds reputation. Not loudly, subtly. People speak differently around you. They hesitate before pushing. They adjust expectations. You no longer need to defend your space. Your presence defines it. Emotional power also changes how you process pain. Disappointment no longer spills outward. Betrayal becomes data. Conflict becomes optional. You feel fully but privately. This privacy protects you, keeps your inner world sovereign. No one knows what affects you, so no one knows where to strike. And here's the final shift. When emotions stop controlling you, fear loses relevance. Fear depends on anticipation. Calm dissolves anticipation. You stop rehearsing conversations. Stop replaying moments. Stop carrying interactions longer than necessary. Mental freedom follows emotional control. This isn't about dominance over others. It's about independence from influence. When influence disappears, peace replaces it. Once you reach this state, interactions become simpler, cleaner, lighter. You engage without losing yourself. And the people who once tried to pull your strings, they won't even know when they lost access. There's a point where emotional control stops being an effort and becomes instinct. That's when your inner world finally stops leaking outward. You no longer rehearse responses. You no longer feel compelled to react. Calm becomes automatic. This is where most people fail. They believe one strong response proves strength. In reality, strength is proven through repetition, choosing restraint again and again. Consistency builds identity. People sense this shift before you announce it. Your tone changes. Your pacing slows. Your reactions soften. Suddenly, situations that once rattled you barely register. You stop absorbing other people's chaos. Their urgency no longer becomes yours. Their emotions stay where they belong, with them. This emotional independence changes everything. Decisions become cleaner. Boundaries enforce themselves. You stop negotiating your peace. Those who relied on your reactions feel the absence. Some will test harder. Others will drift away. Both outcomes confirm growth. And here's the quiet truth. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional energy. Selectivity isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. When emotional discipline becomes your default, stress loses leverage. Pressure loses grip. You begin to move through situations with a calm confidence others can't imitate. The more stable you become, the less explainable your presence feels to others. They can't pinpoint why, but they feel it. And once calm becomes natural, chaos has nowhere to attach. Emotional mastery also changes how you experience conflict. Conflict stops feeling urgent. It becomes optional. You realize that not every challenge requires engagement, and not every confrontation deserves response. This is where control becomes invisible. You don't escalate. You don't retreat. You simply disengage when something no longer serves you. Most people argue to feel powerful. You withdraw to preserve power. That difference defines authority. You learn to recognize emotional traps instantly. Provocation, guilt, pressure disguised as concern. None of it pulls you anymore because you see the mechanism behind it. And when you see the mechanism, the emotion dissolves. Your reactions become rare and therefore meaningful. When you speak, people listen. When you stay silent, people adjust. Either way, you dictate pace. This isn't manipulation. It's alignment. You act in accordance with your inner state, not external noise. Over time, your life simplifies. Fewer conflicts, fewer explanations, fewer emotional drains. What remains is clarity, and clarity is addictive. Once you taste it, you'll never willingly return to chaos. The strongest position in any situation isn't dominance. It's detachment. And detachment makes you impossible to corner. Because when nothing pulls you emotionally, nothing can trap you mentally. Eventually, people stop testing you. Not because you confronted them, but because the test stopped working. Emotional games require reaction. Without it, the game collapses. Your reputation shifts quietly. You become hard to read. Calm under pressure. Not easily shaken. These labels carry weight without noise. This is the point where you no longer need to protect your energy actively. Others do it for you. They approach carefully. They choose words more precisely. Your calm becomes a boundary. Inside, you feel lighter. You no longer carry conversations longer than necessary. You release situations quickly. Emotional recovery speeds up. Pain still exists, but it doesn't linger. Disappointment still happens, but it doesn't dominate. You process privately and move forward intact. This internal efficiency is real power. It saves time. It saves energy. It saves identity. You're no longer pulled into emotional storms. You observe them from distance. And distance gives perspective. At this stage, emotional control isn't something you practice. It's something you embody. And embodiment is unmistakable. People sense when someone can't be moved. They don't know why, but they feel it. And once they feel it, they stop trying. The final truth is simple. Whoever controls your emotions controls your life. When that control returns to you, everything changes, quietly, permanently. You stop living in reaction mode. You stop surrendering peace for momentary validation. You stop explaining yourself into exhaustion. Your mind becomes your territory again. Protected, governed, sovereign. This doesn't isolate you, it frees you. You connect without dependency. You care without losing control. You engage without surrendering authority. Your emotions become tools, not masters. Signals, not commands. And because you listen without obeying blindly, you move with intention. This is what makes you untouchable. Not strength on display, but strength contained. Not loud confidence, but quiet certainty. The world is full of people trying to provoke, pressure, and pull reactions from others. You simply don't participate, and that refusal rewrites every interaction. From this point forward, silence works for you. Calm protects you. Awareness guides you. You don't need to announce this shift. People will feel it. Because nothing is more intimidating than someone who cannot be emotionally controlled and doesn't need anyone to know it. The final truth is simple. Whoever controls your emotions controls your life. When that control returns to you, everything changes, quietly, permanently. You stop living in reaction mode. You stop surrendering peace for momentary validation. You stop explaining yourself into exhaustion. Your mind becomes your territory again. Protected, governed, sovereign. This doesn't isolate you, it frees you. You connect without dependency. You care without losing control. You engage without surrendering authority. Your emotions become tools, not masters. Signals, not commands. And because you listen without obeying blindly, you move with intention. This is what makes you untouchable. Not strength on display, but strength contained. Not loud confidence, but quiet certainty. The world is full of people trying to provoke, pressure, and pull reactions from others. You simply don't participate, and that refusal rewrites every interaction. From this point forward, silence works for you. Calm protects you. Awareness guides you. You don't need to announce this shift. People will feel it. Because nothing is more intimidating than someone who cannot be emotionally controlled and doesn't need anyone to know it.